What's up, everybody, and welcome to Flagrant.
We're back.
Yes. We did it.
Yeah.
Did a little comedy festival, solved peace in the Middle East. I don't think it's a coincidence. Shout out to Flagrant, bro. We got the best fans in the world. Our fans didn't give a flying if we went to Saudi. All these other podcasts, all these comedians trembling. I love seeing these motherfuckers going on there to little shows and saying, like, well, but America's bad too. Shut up, dork. All these comedians terrified of their own audience.
And it's just like people are always trying to build themselves up by taking other people down. Mark Maron, don't say it.
I mean, I don't get it.
He's pathologically jealous. Like he's like literally mentally ill. And the Theo thing really drove me nuts because that sent Theo into a real spiral.
Did it?
Yeah.
The stand-up comedy scene is in a shambles at the moment. These guys can't stop taking L's. At this point, it's getting harder and harder to keep up with the pace of all the bullshit flying out of their mouths. Nobody is coping harder than tall and funny scientist Joe Rogan. The cognitive decline that we've witnessed over the last few years is accelerating recently because now we're starting to see him breaking his own rules. He's always preaching about not reading the comments and not watching or reading any criticism about him, but now it's getting so loud that he's clearly having trouble avoiding it. And I think it really started after he released his comedy special last year called Burn the Boats. That's when all his years of comedy talk since the pandemic came back to bite him in the ass. He hyped up his comedy club for years, started having more and more comedians on the podcast, and anointed himself the king of comedy. Then his special dropped, and Elephant Graveyard dropped his review, which now has over 5 million views, and ironically, it's been the elephant in the room ever since. To make matters worse, Elephant Graveyard's most recent video on Rogan's Doomsday Cult has almost 3 million views. And the thing is, for Rogan, he's been the #1 podcaster in the world for years. He used to average over 10 million views an episode, but after the pandemic broke his brain and he decided to move to Austin and build a little comedy bubble to protect his own ego, his podcast numbers have decreased by over 80%, averaging around 2 million views an episode across both YouTube and audio. Those are still big numbers, but instead of sitting comfortably at #1 with no one else coming close, every month he's jumping around the top 5 depending on what else is trending. This is what he refuses to talk about, and it's why Spotify basically halved his pay when they reviewed his contract at the beginning of last year. The commentary and criticism genre now has a wider reach than Joe Rogan's podcast, and that's trending across all his buddies' podcasts as well, except for Kill Tony, which isn't a podcast. But there's also the whole Riyadh Comedy Festival situation that somehow caught some of the biggest comedians in the world completely off guard. Bill Burr is basically fighting to save his reputation, and meanwhile, like you saw in the intro, Andrew Schulz, who also went to Saudi Arabia, is now bragging about how he's the only comedian to not be copping a backlash, which completely backfired because on that very episode, his fans completely turned against him in the comments section. The hypocrisy and delusion on display from these guys is so much fucking funnier than anything they've ever said on stage. So stick around because I'm going to take you through all of it, including a little cameo appearance from Brendan Schaub towards the end. What all of these guys don't realize is that he's where they're all going to end up. That's the end game for them. Remember though, if you want to see my longer form uncensored breakdowns of the Saudi situation with clips I can't use here on YouTube, plus full reviews of comedy specials, head over to my Patreon via the link in the description where you'll find a bunch of exclusive content including my review of Brian Callen's latest comedy special coming this weekend, plus so much more. So go and check that out if you're interested. I also want to give another massive shout out to all of you who went over to my new channel More Cringe and subscribed. If you want to see my videos covering drama outside of the podcast universe, head over to More Cringe and support the channel to help get it off the ground. Like I said though, Andrew Schulz is finally back on Flagrant after being MIA for a couple of months, and he started flexing on all the other comedians out there who are copping a massive backlash from their fans, because apparently his fans all had his back, or so he thought.
I will go perform for my fans wherever they are on the whole planet. Okay, people don't decide where they're born, you idiots.
Even the Middle Eastern ones, though.
Well, maybe not them; they're beneath me. But like maybe just the white countries, because that's what they're all saying, right? They're like, "How dare you perform in non-white countries that don't have the exact same rules as us?"
Because what they're saying is you're taking money from the government.
Good, my fans get a discount.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So you'd rather I charge the oppressed people full price? The people you think are oppressed pay full price?
It's just ridiculous. Honestly, you either have fans that have supported you. They also share your clips. They also watch your YouTube specials. They watch your Netflix specials. They do everything to give you the life of your dreams.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I'm super grateful. So wherever the they are in the world, I will go perform for them. This whole backlash, it's like you don't need to explain it by like the bad things America has done. Like I see all these people doing this mental gymnastics because they're like trying to justify. You don't have to justify shit. Do you have fans there? Go perform for them. Yep. No fans around the world are beneath you performing for them for things out of their control. The reality is like there are people there that did not decide to be born there. You don't get to decide where you're born. You also don't get to decide the rules of your government when there is a monarchy or a dictatorship. So you don't punish those people for things completely out of their control when they've helped you live your dreams. It's like absurd. I see people go, but what did America do to the Native Americans? Whatever it did.
You're gonna make you say that today, dude. It's Columbus Day.
My boy.
Come on.
I performed at the Chumash Casino. Okay, I perform it all there because I'm going there and doing jokes for them.
Andrew Schulz calling out the mental gymnastics of the people criticizing comedians who went to the Riyadh Comedy Festival and then spending half an episode of flagrant bitching and moaning about it and taking the moral high ground is one of the most Andrew Schulz things I've ever seen. He's like that one friend everybody has that always asks you for money, but then brags about how well they're doing and how they're planning to buy all this shit. I don't think there's another podcaster out there that can perform the mental gymnastics that Schulz has over the past few years. This is the guy who claimed a streaming service was forcing him to edit out jokes from his comedy special and then proceeded to self-publish on his website, brag to his fans about how much money he made, and then dropped it on YouTube for free a couple of weeks later. Andrew Schulz's moral high ground is built on thin ice. The guy is one of the biggest free speech grifters on the planet. Yet here he is bragging about how other comedians are dealing with audience backlash, not realizing that the comment section on this very episode had completely turned on him.
I saw so many liberal white comics talking on us. First of all, we never been the truth to power guy.
That's the reason why we don't have any pushback, barely any pushback, is because we've never been the virtue signaling type. We've never been the ones out here. Like, there are people that are getting pushback and like, based on some that they had said in the past, I kind of get it. Like, I'll be honest, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
You know, like, Burr's getting all this pushback, and it's like the first time I've seen in his career him not, like, aware of why it's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I saw him on Conan, and again, it's a clip, so I don't want to take clips out of context, but he's like, oh, these people are, like, sanctimonious. And it's like, bro, you did say that Beyonce sold out for blood money.
Yeah.
For going to, like, an oil state.
Yeah.
And then you went to an oil state. So, like, now, the criticism for that comes from other things. They're just using this as a tool of leverage against him because they're upset at him for other things. But they're not wrong that it's hypocritical to call Beyonce one thing and then you go do the same thing. The personal accountability we can have is like when we had politicians on the pod, we thrust ourselves into the political discourse. That's something we could take accountability for. That's something we got to go, okay, if we have politicians on the pod, we have to know that there are people who their entire identity is politics, and any moment they can to point a finger and to mudsling and to dehumanize, they will take advantage of that. So I feel like that's on us for that. That being said, we've received almost no criticism. You know what I mean? Bad Friends is in shambles. That comment section is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, all Bobby did is went there and showed his dick.
Yeah.
Showed his dick, and then
It's
Santino,
progressive.
he did an accent, and then they came back. It's not that crazy.
Yeah, it's
Leave
progressive.
him alone. You know what I mean? Show your dick, Santino, do the accent, and then you come home. It is what it is.
It's so funny, dude.
Yeah. Well, look, we got the best fans.
That is true.
We have the best fans on earth.
All right, so let's check in with their fans real quick and see what they're saying about this episode of Flagrant. Schulz got to be the most bothered, unbothered person on the planet. Andrew acting like he went to Riyadh to do a benefit gig for slave workers who watch his YouTube clips is so Andrew. Schulz has now literally turned into the type of person he hated 5 years ago. Andrew gaslighting us that we don't care is classic Schulz behavior. The first 20 minutes of this podcast is the boys' justification for taking that money. The mental gymnastics are actually hilarious. Bro saying us flagrant fans don't care, all I see in the comments is fans caring about it and criticizing it. Andrew and Akash trying to gaslight their audience like this has to be one of the biggest L's in flagrant history. And they weren't just gaslighting, they were bragging about how they got away without any criticism compared to Bad Friends and Bill Burr, while their own fans were dishing it out to them in the comment section. At this point, this shit writes itself. This is exactly what happened to Brendan Schaub all those years ago when he hit back at all his comedy haters and punched down on them because they were supposedly jealous of his looks and success, not realizing that he was slowly creating literally the biggest group of haters in human history. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer are in the same boat too. After years of Tom punching down on his audience for even the slightest criticism against him, and Bert being an insufferable egomaniac drunk on his own fame and fortune, and obviously too much alcohol, but now Andy and the Toy Story boys have joined them. After years of abusing their audience's trust and selling them bullshit to line their own pockets, it turns out the free speech warriors were just common opportunists this whole time. And if that wasn't enough, check out the sheer arrogance on display from Schulz's side piece Akash Singh. The guy's acting like he's a made man in the mafia because Schulz let him tag along to Saudi Arabia.
All right, boys. Anyway, any other discussions about the fest, Saudi fest?
Nah, Mark Maron, you ain't shit. That's about it.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm tired of this mother.
shit. A lot, not just him. A lot of these comedians ain't. Like,
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of comedians, like, trying to, like, separate themselves from Austin lately. Have you seen this?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
I've seen a lot of these comedians, like, really trying to create distance from Austin, like, what's happening in Austin. A lot of comedians that, like, use Joe and his millions of followers to boost their careers, that went on there to promote their specials, that performed at the club, like, really used Joe's power and influence that he was very generous to give them. And all of a sudden there's like a little internet backlash post-election, and they're trying to blame the manosphere for the election, not the fact that they ran a fucking dead guy and a woman that can't talk. It's like, and now I see these comics like kind of vocally talking shit, that they would talk all this shit, by the way, behind closed doors, because it's what comics do, but like real like rat weasel shit. Because you let this guy enrich you, you used him for his followers, and now you see a situation where like they're getting backlash, and instead you pile on for self-salvation, not get your boys back and refute some of the rumors that exist on the internet. Now Joe can no longer do something for you, or Tony can no longer do something for you, because that's what it really comes down. When going on Joe Rogan made you a millionaire for 6 years in a row, all these comics were quiet. They were complimentary. They were being so sweet because they wanted to get in. Now that going on Joe Rogan once doesn't automatically give you a career. And now that Kill Tony is focused on more like character-based people, now they no longer see their salvation in these two people. So now they're having these honest conversations. Oh, they're saying the R word a lot. I'm seeing these comics. It's just so two-faced snake weasels, little rats.
Yeah.
And this is kind of who they are, though, to be honest. Like, these are the conversations they have in private, and then they kind of change face. So maybe it's even better that they're finally have the balls to be authentic. Nah, that's my guy. I'm never gonna I never pile on against him. That's a real motherfucker right there.
Andrew Schulz defending Joe Rogan like he wasn't one of those guys that blew up and became a millionaire off the back of his JRE appearances. The reality is, Schulz is correct. The numbers don't lie. He's just too afraid to say it out loud. Rogan's podcast has fallen off. Like I showed you in the intro, JRE's numbers are down by around 80% on average since the pandemic years. His reach just isn't big enough anymore to give his guests the boost that guys like Schulz, Tom, Bert, Hinchcliffe, and Schaub used to get. I mean, Brendan Schaub is the most frequent guest in JRE history, and his podcasts are surviving off bot views and the fumes from his storage unit garage. But there's also comedy fatigue. During the pandemic, people had the capacity to absorb more content, and while it was all fresh, podcasts like Flagrant 2 and Two Bears One Cave were popular because people had the time and energy to sit back and listen to dudes being dudes. I mean, I was one of them. But after a few years, when the hype started to die down, people started realizing that these guys just aren't that funny. I've reviewed all of their latest specials from last year and this year over on my Patreon, and every single time I was so surprised about how far they've fallen off. And I'll be honest, Joe Rogan has never made me laugh. I've never been a fan of his comedy. But Andrew Schulz and Tom Segura have had their moments before. Some of you might remember when I used to be a massive fan of Tom Segura's stand-up. But over the last few years, as they've raked in the millions of dollars and shot to fame, their comedy has completely turned to shit. I mean, Schultz's recent comedy special, Life, was absolutely fucking terrible. The edgy and controversial comedian did a whole hour about going through IVF with his wife. And since Rogan built the comedy mothership in Austin, he's had so many random comedians on his podcast, and people are just switching off. All of this is starting to get under Rogan's skin. His podcast numbers are falling, the internet has completely turned on him, and he failed to convince everyone that he's a tall and funny comedian. Now he's being dragged into a tit-for-tat with his biggest critics, completely abandoning the advice he gives everyone else who comes on his podcast. Joe started reading the comments again.
It's just like people are always trying to build themselves up by taking other people down. And it's historic. It's been going on forever. It's always the case. And it's normal. I've done what they do. I've hated on people. I definitely did when I was younger. It's just not smart. It's, you know, your identity gets too wrapped up in conflict. And it's just like super unhealthy.
Well,
Super
we know
unhealthy
people
for you.
our age who are still doing that.
Of course. Don't
Comics.
Mark Maron, don't say it.
I mean, I don't get it. You know, I'm like, I don't know.
I get it. He's sad. He's sad. He wants other people to hurt. He's pathologically jealous. Like he's like literally mentally ill.
I don't know about mentally ill, but Mark Maron's definitely jealous of Rogan's success. He's even openly admitted it. But the funny thing I've noticed about guys like Rogan, Schulz, and Bill Burr is that when they get called out, they always go after the character of the people criticizing them. They never go after the actual points that are being raised. Whenever Rogan talks about his critics, he always defaults to calling them jealous haters and never debates their actual arguments.
Then over time, obviously I became more famous than him and more successful than him. And he does not like that. He hates that. And the only time we were cool was when Mark was number one. I started getting more successful. And then my podcast passed his. Then my podcast became number one. And then the Spotify deal. And that's when he started talking shit about me. The Spotify deal was a real problem. And that's when he started coming after me. And it was about vaccines. Like, so he was talking about me on stage about vaccines. It's like, by the way, everything I said was correct. The people that I had on my podcast were like Robert Malone, who got criticized. He has 9 patents in the creation of mRNA technology.
But he's a scientist.
Very well published and accredited
yeah.
scientist.
Slow Joe not realizing that Brian Callen was low-key trolling him after what happened last time is fucking hilarious. Callen made sure to emphasize that the guys Rogan was talking about were all accredited scientists.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. Joe Rogan, Mr. Scientist. Are you saying that
Don't
we shouldn't
don't
have...
do that. Don't call me Mr. Scientist. I'll start mocking you, and it's so much easier to mock you. Please
yes.
stop.
No,
You
I
don't-
won't. I won't. I know you think it's just... I've heard Susan Humphreys.
This is a long conversation that we're not going to have on this podcast
Right.
because I'm going to get angry because I've researched this for years.
Right.
Let's just
But you're not a scientist.
I don't have to be a scientist
do.
to know that.
Yes, you do.
No, Brian, shut the up. I don't have to be a scientist to read research. Brian, you don't know what the I'm saying. You don't.
Well, I know because you don't want to talk about it.
Brian, I don't want to talk about it in the middle of a podcast because it'll completely derail the podcast.
The open-minded comedian who is prepared to talk to anyone and listen to their point of view is easily triggered by the slightest criticism. But again, all of these little hissy fits and dummy spits that Rogan's been having lately are all a result of the pressure building up from the growing criticism of his podcast, the declining numbers, and his stand-up comedy being widely ridiculed. Like, he's really been going hard on Marc Maron lately, and as we saw earlier with Schulz, his buddies are rushing to his defense too. I think when Mark went on Bad Friends with Bobby Lee and Santino and got almost zero pushback from them when he was shitting on Rogan and all of his friends, that was the breaking point for Joe, because that's one of the biggest and most successful comedy podcasts at the moment, and they're based out of LA. They haven't really bought into the whole Austin comedy scene, and we know how aggro Joe gets whenever a comedian refuses to acknowledge the undeniable superiority of the comedy mothership. It almost seems like Rogan's trying to send a warning shot to anyone else who thinks they can criticize him publicly.
He also lies. Like, one of the things he lied about, he did a podcast with Howie Mandel, and Howie Mandel asked him if he had problems with comedians. Like, no, I don't have any problems with any comedians. I've never had any problems with comedians. Like, what are you talking about? He's had a problem with every single comedian that's more successful than him. Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, me, Tony Hinchcliffe. And the Theo thing really drove me nuts, because that sent Theo into a real spiral.
Did it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Theo went into a spiral, and that was a big part of him getting attacked, was Maron talking about him on his special, saying that he'd have Hitler on his podcast. Well, why is he saying that? Does he think that's true? Does he think that Theo has anybody on his show, including Bernie Sanders?
He's learning.
He
wants to learn.
Here we go again with the fucking gatekeeping. Joe Rogan, the king of comedy, tells everyone what they can and can't joke about. That bit in Marc Maron's special about Theo Von interviewing Hitler was funny as fuck, especially the line, "I get it." Absolutely spot on. Meanwhile, Joe's biggest fan, Tony Hinchcliffe, is out there pushing the hackiest stereotype jokes and cheap one-liners anyone's ever heard, live from the mothership. The hypocrisy is oozing out of the sides of their mouths. And I covered Theo Von's crash out on Patreon earlier this week, where I went through his long response to what happened and broke it down. Not once did he mention anything about Marc Maron's joke. In fact, Theo's issues started long before that, according to the man himself, so it sounds like Joe's projecting his own issues with Marc onto Theo and fishing for sympathy from his audience, which, as an almost 60-year-old man worth $500 million, is wild. I can't believe after all these years, after all the success that Rogan's fallen into, he's still sitting there coping over why everyone hates him. I mean, is that nice? And speaking of, as I said earlier on in this video, Brendan Schaub is the final form for all of these guys. This is what they have to look forward to. Bappa blew up before most of them, and now he's the model for comedy and podcasting failure. This is what he had to say on his 20,000 view podcast about the Theo Von situation. And if you can get through this whole clip without so much as cracking a smile, let me know in the comments below and I'll drop you a heart, because this shit had me in stitches. By the way, don't mind the background noise, it's just the air conditioning he's got running in the storage unit.
Before we get to the fighting, one more thing. I see a lot of people out there, a lot of people reaching out to me like, yo, talk to your boy Theo. Hopefully Theo's okay. And then a lot of you are hating on Theo right now. Let me tell you something about Theo Von. Theo shot his special, right? Theo shot his special and was having some issues with the material, was going, behind the curtain asking for taglines, and they're shooting for Netflix. So it was a bit of a mess. Those of you piling on Theo right now, you ain't shit. You ain't shit. Let me tell you something. I've been in those green rooms. I've been around the most talented, most successful comics in the world for a very long time. None of them touch Theo Von. Theo Von is once in a generational talent. Did he have a bad night? Yes. By all standards, by all metrics, he had a bad night shooting his special. That doesn't mean Theo isn't funny, Theo isn't talented, Theo isn't special, Theo relapsed. It means none of that. It means Theo had a tough time shooting his Netflix special. What is it, his fourth, fifth special? One night doesn't define Theo Von. Y'all need to back the up. If you want to hate on anybody, send it my way instead of Theo's. I don't give a fuck. Back off, Theo, I'm telling you. Back the fuck off, Theo. He's the funniest fucking person, bar none. I don't care who it is. No one's more talented than Theo Von in the world. Bar none, the funniest person you will ever meet.
Thank God Schaub cleared that up. All we're waiting for now is to hear what Ja Rule thinks. And don't get it twisted, Brendan absolutely loves seeing Theo going through a rough time. After I cut it off there, he went on to list all the other times that Theo was having issues, just to remind everyone. You know, like the time he rage cried because Bryan Callen's career was derailed after multiple women made allegations about him. Bappa has this strange way of pumping up his buddies while simultaneously reminding everyone about their deepest issues.
It drives me nuts that he's not up there with those guys. He's better than 99% of them. And you want to outcast him over some bullshit? That's what I don't with. That's what upsets me.
Buddy, nobody's talking about Callen's allegations except for you. You're the one who keeps bringing it up. The sad part is, Rogan's on the same trajectory. He's getting caught up in the criticism and gossip instead of following his own advice and ignoring all the mentally ill haters. That's half the reason his numbers have crashed. Most JRE episodes now are just Rogan ranting to his buddies about the same 5 talking points. He used to have experts on and talk about all sorts of interesting shit, but now he's so full of his own ego that he'd rather listen to the sound of his own voice through the headphones. The whole stand-up comedy world right now is collapsing. It's a bunch of aging alpha males trying to convince us they're still relevant while their audiences quietly move on. These guys built massive followings off authenticity, but the second they got rich, they turned into the very Hollywood phonies they used to roast. It's not about comedy anymore, it's about control, influence, and ego maintenance disguised as free speech. Joe Rogan's turned into a reaction channel for his own downfall, Bill Burr's lecturing us about morality from a Saudi Starbucks, Andrew Schulz is drowning in denial while pretending his fans still love him, and Brendan Schaub, the prophecy, is sitting in his storage unit chirping like the canary in the coal mine. Comedy has never been this fake. These guys used to preach about being fearless truth tellers, but now they're absolutely terrified of losing relevance. They've all turned into propaganda mouthpieces. Comedy isn't collapsing because of cancel culture, it collapsed because comedians stopped being funny. Anyway, remember to check out my Patreon for all the latest on the collapse of comedy, Theo Von's crash out, and Bryan Callen's comedy special. Otherwise, remember to head over and subscribe to my new channel, More Cringe, so you don't miss out on my uploads throughout the week. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.